What's up, everyone? Welcome to a super cool episode of The Mind And, where we're going to be going over two specific protocols to improve memory recall and the utilization of it, which is really important. As I alluded to in the previous episodes, it's not just your ability to store the memory in a neuron, it's not just getting the neuron to turn on and have the memory active. We also need to take that memory from somewhere and put it to our speech and auditory cortices so that it can be transmitted via language to somebody else, or ourselves, ironically. And that's probably the coolest way to start this episode. And it turns out that when you're speaking or imagining, it's actually a multi-sensory environment if it's real, phenomenologically to you, which you guys should already know what that means. So, the best speakers have their lingual and auditory cortexes active when they're speaking. Even though they're not specifically focusing on what to say or what they're listening to, it's this multi-sensory environment that creates the flow state. The same way that when you are an extreme athlete at the professional level, your flow state exists between this amygdala and frontal cortex balancing act. And there are so many different flow states that exist for whatever you want to do and who you want to be in that specific domain, but they're all multi-sensory balancing acts. There is no time where you get what you want by driving down one singular lane in the brain. And that's what these protocols are predicated on entirely, which is what makes them so potent in my opinion. So the first one is a speech articulation protocol. And this is for the people that just need to get it off the tip of their tongue, or maybe have the idea in their head but can't describe it very well, or you just have a ton of ums in what you say. If you follow me on Instagram at GoSuperBrain, I posted a snippet of this up, so you may have had some insight into what's coming. But our lingual cortex has three sections. And of these three sections, they obviously fire at independent rates. One section is going to be dedicated to the understanding of the speech, while the other is going to be predicated entirely on the cohesiveness of the speech. And then the final section is going to be based on interpreting speech and putting it together from a cultural and how you are perspective. So there's a cultural, an interpretation, and an understanding portion that need to fire at rates similar to each other to get that lingual cortex going in its singular flow state. And then the auditory cortex has a bunch of little stuff in it too, which goes to show you why it really is so hard to be truly good in the moment at something. So for the speech articulation protocol, pick out a multi-syllable word that's difficult for you to pronounce. So it could be something like juxtaposition. Or if you're a biochem nerd, you could pick out some type of transcription factor or protein that preferably has a number in it as well, so it forces you to switch things up. You're going to start by saying it slowly, and the slower you say it, it should be absolutely perfect. Slowly, over the course of maybe 5 to 15 reps, so to speak, you want to aim to say it faster and faster and faster without losing accuracy one bit. Next, you're going to pick a passage to write, and it doesn't have to be from memory. Just pick a passage to write. I want you to do it in cursive, and I want you to completely forget about periods and commas. I want you to write it like one giant run-on sentence, completely in cursive, picking up the pen or pencil as few times as possible. Lastly, I want you to take a few deep breaths, and I want you to read that passage exactly how it's written. Almost feeling somewhat improper, but it's just one run-on sentence you completely go through. You can do this protocol multiple times a day. You can do it at the same time every day to enhance the actual function of the lingual cortex, or you can use it right before a sales call in the hopes that you can get your nut a little bit easier. The second protocol more has to do with articulating thoughts in your mind, shutting off some of those white noise tabs that are inhibiting you that I've referenced before, and bringing focus to in between your own ears before you even begin talking. Because obviously they're very different. So this one involves picking a picture that has a lot of details to it and some irregularities. So probably choose like an animal, nature, maybe some like funky abstract or surrealism art. Something that's not very typical and not very square and boxy. That you can remember more easily due to rhythms, numbers, and geometry, right? Should be totally ambiguous as to why things are where. Look at the picture, focus with your eyes, gazing past the picture as you try to take in the data for 30 seconds. Then I want you to close your eyes and imagine it in your head as close to what you saw as possible for the next 30 seconds. Finally, open your eyes, and if your art skills are as bad as mine, you might want to choose writing and adjectives. But if you have somewhat decent art skills, you can draw it. It actually doesn't really matter. It's really just choosing what you're better at, and then try to get it as accurate as possible over time. Don't use the same image multiple times in a row, although you can cycle through it until you get good at it. But either way, these two protocols explicitly describe what I wanted this website to be. Should be probably the first time, unless any of you have spoken to me prior, where you can do a protocol and immediately go super brain.